Hey, John here, and welcome to this Embroidery Medic video. Now today I'm going to be problem solving a real digitizing issue sent in from one of our inner circle members within our Skool community. Now they were struggling with a logo that they were trying to digitize, so I asked them to send me the photo, the original artwork, and the native file format from the Embroidery Legacy software. So let's open it up together, walk through exactly what's going wrong and how we're going to fix it. Now here's a picture of the photo that was posted in our Skool community. Just looking at it, I can tell right away that these are two different files, or maybe an edit from an original file. This one has an extra color there, this one doesn't. The real, thing that I'm looking at is number one, this first one in the orange. I can definitely see separation. So I have this area where I'm showing a gap between the fill stitch as well as the satin stitch. Some of the, inclinations or the stitch directions of the O and this O seam off, and it's a little rough overall. It looks like a completely vertical fill, a fill that's going in one direction. And I try to avoid vertical fills whenever possible, because a vertical fill on a knitted garment like a golf shirt or even a sweatshirt t-shirt, you always have more stretch this way than this way. The garments, as far as how the fabric is milled, I find that that tends to distort with a fill that's going the same direction. It falls in those hills and valleys and it starts to push out the stitched area. Vertical stitches literally fall into that center seam and come back out again. Then we have the other issue where we end up getting separation where stitches oppose. So if the fill's going this way and these stitches are going this way, it's going to pull them apart, which I can see happening on the lettering here. I can see black showing through. Might not notice it as much with gray on black. Like here, I can see a little bit of black showing through, but it really doesn't visually catch my eye as much as it does in this sample. I'm going to take a look at this file now. The next thing that I generally do. Now, right off the bat, my first, inkling that this is a design that was, edited a couple times is true, because the file name is actually House of Resell in JDX, and then it has after it number 3. So I'm guessing this might be the third edit, of the original design. And they were probably doing what needs to be done, because anytime you're learning, you should embroider your samples as you are, doing a design. And I do that to this day. If I'm doing a design and I, run the sample and I want to approve it, if I want to make any tweaks or changes, I do that based off of the embroidery results that I see and not off of necessarily what I see on screen. But just looking at this right now, we'll start right from the beginning, because I can see that my colors are set up. I have my first color here and I have a fill. And if I outline that fill and I look at the direction of the fill is in a, perfectly vertical, just like I thought. I always try to not use a vertical stitch. So I would actually not even use a horizontal stitch, because the lettering and these straight lines, a lot of these are going horizontally. So having a horizontal fill and then having all these satin stitches in, this part here and this part of the U and this part here of the E and of the F and this area here, and most of these, like 1, 2, 3 lines right there, those will all sink into the same direction, and I might have a chance of losing some of the integrity of the stitches because I'm keeping the same direction. So I'd actually change it to, let's say, a 15-degree angle, so it's going to always, for the most part, oppose any of those vertical stitches that are lying on a horizontal fill. So that's number one. Number two, if I look at this, and I'll just hit the select again and let's choose that color, I can see that there's really no push and pull compensation. They have it set up so that it's going halfway around. And if I were going to just modify this and change it, I would exaggerate the pull going the direction of the stitch, and I would actually take the ends and I would have them actually go inside a little bit on all of the ends of these stitches, so that I'm adjusting the push and pull based on the design. So that would be the first thing that I would do, is adjust, the push and pull if I were to keep that fill going the same direction. Now, the other thing that I notice is with the outline itself, if I look at this outline, and I'm guessing this might be because of, and let's just hit the Q key, and I don't know why it's turning that way, but there is a really strange turning of the stitches here. When I turn on the 3D, you can see how this is turning really tight into those areas, and I'm not exactly sure why, because that shouldn't be happening. I'm guessing it might be within part of the editing. I did also mention that I thought there was a lot of density in this design, and this is where I can tell right away. Let's take a look here and bring that sort of into the area of the screen so I can see it, make it a little bit smaller. But I can tell right away that there's less density in these two objects, and everywhere else has a substantial amount of density. Especially when I turn this off, you can see that there's less density here, and everything else has a ton of density, including the outside. So if I look at this and call up my properties, I can see that it actually has 0.2 millimeters. Now, keep in mind that 0.4 millimeters is standard density. So they, for whatever reason, have used twice as much density as you would normally use in an embroidery design, because 0.2 is something that I would maybe use for 3D foam, but I wouldn't use 0.2 millimeters for pretty much anything else. And I can tell that all of these are going to be the same. Yep, 0.2 millimeters. So they've used a 0.2 millimeter density for all of these objects. And I can guess that it's because they didn't feel that the original sewout that they did, which might have been set at 0.4, because if I click these ones, that one is 0.4. So that's normal density, and all the others are just twice as much density. They probably started to lose some integrity of the stitches and thought, I'm going to fix that by adding more density, because that is, mentally the go-to that people kind of go to when they're learning. They think density is going to fix it, but the reverse happens. You actually end up getting a lot more stitches, and even around the outside of this, you have a ton of density in there. The other thing that I'm guessing is, and I'm going to bring in a baseline here and just drop it down, and I'm going to drop a baseline right here so that it is on that, and it looks actually like this design might be crooked a little bit too, as far as the artwork is concerned, but I'm going to drop some baselines down. And the reason why I'm doing this is, if you look at this, the baseline of this, and let's just grab this one here, move it down a little bit more, okay? Actually, the baseline on this doesn't look too bad. This one looks okay. Let's look here. The baseline on this one, that one's not too bad either, but on this one, we definitely have an issue. So I'm going to come here and put that on. Okay, so what I see is at a 600% scale when I digitize this, and if I go in and move this right here, I usually like to cut my stitches short a little bit. So I will cut short my stitches so that they actually, on these open ends of the two H's on the top, and the open ends on the bottom, and the open ends on the U, and the open ends on the ends of the E, I always cut those short slightly because of the push and pull compensation. And it looks like that wasn't done for any of the lettering. They just digitized it right on the objects, which tells me that when they embroider this, they're going to see what I like to call a dancing baseline. You're actually going to have letters that visually look bigger than others. So in other words, the H is going to look bigger than the O, and the U is going to look bigger on the top than it does the bottom, and it's going to kind of stagger up and down like that, and we call that a dancing baseline with embroidery. So that's the other problem that I'm kind of seeing here, is it's really not using any push or pull compensation within the objects that were digitized as well. Now lastly, and I'll just do this one by hand, I'm going to come here and just use my artwork. If I look at this object here, and I draw a point here, and I'm going to hold the shift and go all the way across to the other side, go right to here, and then I'm going to go up to here, and I'm holding shift so I know it's going to go all at perfect 90-degree angles, and let's just come to here, and now come back down to the bottom right there and hit enter. Okay, so that object is now done, and it actually, if I zoom in, it looks pretty good here, okay, but I'm at 600% right now. Looks pretty good at that side there, but when I go over to the other side, I can tell that from the bottom, I guess right-hand corner up to the top, there is a visual difference. I can see gapping happening here. So the shape in itself isn't even perfectly straight, and that would be another issue that I'd kind of see within this. Now the last thing that I would look at, and this one is kind of a biggie as far as I'm concerned, is the trims in the design. This trim's okay because this is where the design is finishing, goes into the next object. That trim's okay, but I did see very quickly there's a trim right here, and there's a trim over here to go over here, the letters aren't joining close point. There's an unnecessary trim here. And then when I go over here and look at this, there's actually all kinds of trims just in that little object. And if I come in here and I do a slow redraw and kind of, try to see how this is going to play out, I'm just going to hit that, and I can see now that I have my fill going down. Again, I did edit already that fill because it was, definitely there's no push or pull compensation. I have this piece going around the outside. And then when I get to here, actually, if I look at this, you can see that's it. They did this piece, trimmed over to that piece, now trimming over here. So unnecessary trims in the design. Going over to this one, it looks like they didn't do a trim between here to here. And then there is all kinds of trims within that top part, within this part here of the logo. And that's what I don't want to see. That is unnecessary tie-ins and tie-outs within the actual design file. And you're going to have a whole bunch of starting and stopping on the machines. So the best thing to do, which is what I did, is I redigitized this design from scratch. And I'm going to show you a comparison of what I did compared to what we had just viewed here. So if I pan down, we'll be able to see the original file here, and I'm just going to show you. I brought in the original artwork because I asked them to send me the original artwork. And then one thing that I did notice right away with the original artwork is the border around this is much bigger than the original artwork. And I wasn't sure why that was done that way, but I kind of did a half, balance between that, and I made my stitches a little bit thicker because this was under 1 millimeter when I went to measure it, keeping in mind that I did digitize this design at a 6:1 scale. But I'm going to take this now, bring it into the center, and I'm going to hide the artwork underneath so that we can see actually what I did. And as I mentioned with the fill right away, I brought in this fill, and I actually that's a little bit of what I call a knockdown global underlay. I actually looked at this design and I thought, well, this could be put on a hat. So I did a stitch, up and down, and then I did a little bit of a tack down. And actually, let's just do the redraw so you can see it. But here we have a stitch that's going down the center right here. And there it does sort of that little bit of stitching that's going to hold the fabric in place, especially if it's a hat. And it's just a couple hundred stitches, so it's not going to really affect the stitch count that much. But if you do decide to take this design and put it on a finished cap and a shirt or a jacket, you're going to have good results. Then you can see that I do have a 15-degree fill. Instead of going completely vertical, now I'm doing it at an angle so that all of the other stitches that I know are going on top are going to hopefully oppose that fill direction a little bit and not sink into the same direction. So the fill gets laid down next, and then the border is going to go around. And when you see the border start to go around this design, you're going to see that I also kind of start at the bottom here. So it's going to go over here, do this piece, and then it goes all the way around and finishes this all the way up to this point right here. And it is actually a perfect rectangle. So I have a perfect rectangle in there, and then I go and do all of these objects. And there is a little bit of underlay that's going down. So if you look at this underlay, I have some manual underlay going down right there that is going to basically show stitches the same color as the lettering if these do decide to separate. So I'm incorporating a little bit of that old school theory we like to teach within all of our lessons, where you actually learn how to use manual underlay techniques to rectify issues that are going to happen when things actually sew out. Now this also, if I look at this, the baseline, when I draw onto my objects here, and I'm going to go to 6:1 scale. So there is 6:1, and let's just go to this one here. So here is my object, and here is my next one right here. And you can see that if I go right on those lines, I can see that my stitches are actually further down on the areas. It's like the E, the S, the U, the O, And the areas that actually have the open ends, there I have cut short the open end of the bottom of the F, the open ends on the edges of the E, the open ends on the U. And the same thing would happen within this. If you visually look at this, the R looks smaller than the rest of the letters here, and the E looks, big, the S looks big, the L looks a little shorter on the tops, but that's all done at purpose to adjust for the push and pull compensation. And the best way to kind of learn that and get a handle of that is to really know your sizing and, to be honest, to digitize at a set scale. I teach in all of my education to digitize at a set scale over and over again. 600% is the scale that I've been doing for the last 40 years. And that's one of the reasons why. Even within these objects here, I end up having, if I look at this, if I run through these kind of one at a time, I have this object here, which is a fixed width satin, and then I have underlay, and the underlay is going down and separating those areas. So it does this one first, then I go in and do this little bit of underlay, go over and do this. And in the other design, you'll notice that there was a whole bunch of trims. There was like trims between every single object pretty much that they created here because they didn't path the design properly. Areas that are touching will automatically smart join in our software, but if you don't have two objects that are flowing into the other, it will not join them smartly, and you'll have to, manually travel with the running stitches like I did here. So this design is actually going to give me much, much better results. And the beauty of it is it's going to give me a lot less density. And I'll just take a look at this. Let's grab this object here. Let's move it down a little bit so it's closer. And if I look at this design here, the one that was sent in, there's 244 stitches. So over 22,000 stitches is in the original design. And in the design that I redigitized, I end up having, even with that little bit of global underlay, 18,176. So there's over 4,000 stitches saved in this design compared to this one. And, you put that on a knitted garment, you're definitely going to probably have a little bit of puckering going on and things that aren't going to be as friendly. This one, saving 4,000 stitches, saves you time, and it's going to give you better quality results. But as I always say, the proof is in the stitching. So I did sew this out, and I'm going to show you the comparative results and what little changes I will probably make after seeing my design. I mean, a lot of times if I digitize something and we proof it, which we proofed all our designs before we would sell design files when we used to do that in the old days, and we proof our designs when we stitch them out for our the stock designs that we sell. But if I need to edit a file, I edit the file from the sewn sample, not from what I see on screen, because what you see on screen and what happens when it sews out are usually always two different things. So here is the difference between the two designs. Top one was the one that was sent in. The second one is the one that I redigitized. And it is the same fabric, so just sweatshirt fabric. It is in a mighty hoop, and it has a piece of cutaway stabilizer, same threads for both. So I wanted to do a fair comparison. But when you look at these, you can definitely tell that the second one does look a little bit, actually a lot cleaner as far as I'm concerned. There's some separation between the letters instead of all these kind of just, there's no kerning really between any of them. And I think that has to do with a lot of the density within the original file. I also kind of went in and cleaned up the logo a little bit to get it a little closer to the artwork so it wasn't really quite as bold. But even the shape of the design doesn't look as distorted in the second one, the one that I did compared to the original. And it just has, it has 4,000 stitches less. So as I always say, the proof is in the stitching. One that actually looks better and has 4,000 less stitches that needs to be embroidered, that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. So those are some of the changes that I would make as far as the design. As far as editing the design is concerned, if I do go in and look at the file that I did go in and create, and if I was going to go in and edit anything on this file, and I'll just get rid of the artwork again. So let's get rid of the backdrop, or we're going to unview the backdrop. I would come in to here because it's on a fill, and I might actually grab that entire color of the, not that one, but this one here. So let's grab the color here. So I'm going to grab this logo, and I'm going to take a look at two things. Number one, I'm going to take a look at the type of underlay that I have. So I'm going to go to the underlay, and I can see it's a contour underlay, and it has an inset value of 0.5. And it is a cotton recipe, but I'm going to change that to 0.4 millimeters. So I'm actually adding a tiny little bit of very small, but a little bit of, I guess, more of an edge run to the underlay. And I'm also going to go to the pull compensation. I'm going to change that from 0.2 to 0.3. So very, very small areas. And when I change those, it's going to add a little bit more pull compensation and a little bit more of an edge run. I'd probably do the same thing with this as well. I'd come in here and I would look, and it's probably going to be the same value. So if I look at this one, I would change this one to 0.4 as well, make it a little bit closer, and I would change this to a pull compensation of 0.3, so I'd have a little bit more pull comp on there as well. So adding a little bit of pull comp and edge run underlay to these a little closer to the edge would probably assist in this design looking even cleaner than it does. So that's usually my goal, is to save stitches and to give better visual results. If you enjoyed seeing how I troubleshoot real digitizing problems like this, imagine having these tools and training available anytime you need them. That's exactly what Embroidery Legacy software is designed for. It's beginner-friendly, powerful, and built to help you fix issues instead of guessing. You'll also get full training and community support, so you're never digitizing alone. So check it out and take the next step forward towards creating clean, professional embroidery designs with confidence.